Hi, it's Sharyn Bovat, the DOD Whistleblower. I've had a really rough week, but it's actually been very good. I found out that my family, who are a little crazy, have been telling people that I'm crazy or a lunatic to protect my uncle. My uncle was the chief pilot for Pan Am. He served on the airport commissions for Reagan Bush. It was him that when planes came and they had drugs on them and they wouldn't be searched and they'd be allowed to land even if they didn't have the right papers, it was my uncle. My uncle, I mean, he lied about Lockerbie, and everybody knows that. I put it on my blogs. But he lied about other plane crashes. It turns out when Pan Am closed, he lost his retirement. He lost like another retirement. And then, you're not going to believe this, he became rich. Oh yeah, consulting. Anyways, my Uncle Bill has always been good to me, but at the age of 19, Mr. Lesher, the publisher of the Contra Costa Times, had me come into his office, and you know, he got me to do some stuff for the country, for the greater good. Oh, the greater good! My grandfather loved the term. My mother loved the term. Everything was for the greater good. Evidently, protecting the Nazis was for the greater good. And so, anyways, long story short, my family wanted to protect my Uncle Bill, so when I was vlogging, they decided just to tell people I'm crazy. I'm a lunatic. And I'm really not a lunatic. I'm just crazy about the truth. You see, I've had relatives tell me recently, and people, my dad told me, and I have this on my blog, that I was 14 during the World Airways strike, the ugliest strike in history, but pretty much in aviation. This was like 1979, that he couldn't look at my face because I had the face of management. And, well, anyways, my dad was the pilot rep for the pilots. He did the negotiations, which is kind of funny if my bio dad, which is not 100% confirmed, is the owner of the airline. So my dad had to negotiate, and then my mother kind of got involved in adhering. My dad's best friend kept screaming at my mom, once the Republicans are in charge, there'll be more hours for the pilots. There'll be more money once the Republicans are in charge. Well, no shit, because they were holding hostages with their CIA friends for 444 days. My grandfather kind of took retirement in the 70s. I think it was thanks to Jimmy Carter. Well, Jimmy Carter fired a lot of people in the CIA. It pissed him off, and so they had to get rid of Carter, so they kept some hostages, and then they were released the day Reagan came into office. Now, it really wasn't Reagan's fault. It was Howard Baker's fault. George Bush was smart enough to realize we really don't want a man that kind of orchestrated this whole hostage deal as president. And that's why George Bush didn't get to be president. George H. Bush. I like H. To be candid, I think H is good, okay? H was smart, okay? Some of those things the CIA did weren't the greatest, but when you look at H, my family did a lot of drug trafficking and drug running for the CIA, but that was before H was the CIA director, okay? Mr. Ford had lunch with me, and he never said anything bad about H. Never. I was allowed to ask him anything I wanted. This was at the Republican convention backstage. Somebody tapped me on my shoulder and they said, come on. And then I was told just minutes before I was going to have lunch with a former president, just me and him, and I could ask him anything. Well, except I was told, but not anything about the Kennedy thing. Nothing about Kennedy. Couldn't ask him about Kennedy. Well, I really wasn't that much aware because I was dyslexic. I wasn't a really big student. My mom kept pulling me out of school to take me to Southeast Asia when I was a little kid. Then when I was in 4th grade, I was put in a special program for a whole year on critical thinking. And it was a way to help get my memory to figure out my memory thing. So anyways, long story short, I mean, here I am. I'm like, okay, whatever. But people kept lying to me. Lie. There was so much stuff going on. I would hear things about Pattyhurst. I would hear things about Georgetown. Jonestown. That was it. About how, oh, never mind. They needed conflicts. They needed distractions. They needed to get the mainstream media because they were so mad. They were so mad at Watergate. How could they do that? My God, that was horrible. So what happened was they got CIA vendors to basically control the mainstream media, and then they were starting to suppress all the journalists. I mean, it was amazing. And because Mr. Lesher was one of the people that suppressed, then things that I had heard and I then got to talk to my grandfather about, it was all true. I mean, the mainstream media in America is just totally suppressed. Well, at the same time, I'm always lied to because people don't want to talk to me about my bio dad. Well, then I get a call from a relative that doesn't use internet, and they're like, well, I just wanted to warn you that you might not be your dad's child. And I'm like, oh. You should look at my blog from like 3 years ago. I mean, I've known people that are related to me don't talk to me because they don't like to lie. They just ignore me. Other people that are related to me are mean to me, and they lie about me to protect my Uncle Bill from the chief pilot of Pan Am that let the drugs come into the country. I'm not crazy, but the situation's driving me crazy, but I'm not going to let it get to me. You know why? Because life's too short. We got one shot at a really great life. Unless you believe in reincarnation, and if I do believe in reincarnation, I'm going to come back as like a cat that lives in the White House. Anyways, I have decided that I can't let these people that call themselves relatives get mad at me. The people that lied to me to protect me because they didn't know what to do, or they were scared because my mother told them to lie to, I can forgive you. But the people that lied and told people I was crazy to protect my Uncle Bill, my uncle who let drugs come into America, that I love my uncle, but I don't like what he did. That era in American history was wrong. I've talked to a lawyer from the Reagan era who feels horribly guilty about laws that were created that basically punish black people and send them to jail for drugs because of the crack cocaine. Whereas the white kids, if we did drugs, we were okay. How many presidents have we had that haven't done drugs? I mean, it's nuts. But, I grew up in a wacky family. I finally talked to a sister I talked to like a couple times a decade, and she remembers the trips to Southeast Asia. She remembers having to go to Sydney, Australia for one day. She remembers everything. She remembers going to the Carnation Revolution. Oh, yeah, we got to go to the Carnation Revolution. Yeah. And I'm tired because I know my mommy strapped money belts on me in airplane restrooms. Probably to get through customs or immigration. It's just nuts. It's just memories. But my memories are valid. And, America can't get healthy until we accept the fact that we're not a perfect nation. And we don't bully people because they tell the truth. And have people just listen to me when I was talking about Nissan fraud, which was true. That a foreign company that did business with Iran and Putin was getting taxpayer money, and the collateral was an IDB bond. If they had just listened to me, all this stuff about my uncle never would have come out. If my family had just told people at the CIA, yes, Sharyn had a wacky childhood. Yes, in the 80s, there was a lot of stuff that Sharyn did. She traveled overseas. She did a lot of mysterious trips. Had my family just done that, which is all true, I have the pictures. I have other relatives now that will come forward and say yes. I actually have relatives that have balls, unlike my Aunt Cathy and Aunt Claudia, who have to protect Uncle Bill. But you know what? The relatives that aren't my blood relatives, the relatives from my dad's side of the family, the man that raised me, the ethical man that never became captain for World Airways because he kept fighting with management for rights for the pilots, that man, his honorable family, remembers. And I thank them. I thank the sister that I hardly ever talk to. And I know a wedge was driven between the two of us. I had a handler after the Lockerbie crash, a Bush handler, and they actually went on to do counterintelligence for Dick Cheney. And I can't even say anything bad about Dick Cheney anymore because I've learned recently that My nephew got, when I told Mark Silverman of Gannett that my sister was having major financial problems, she was asking me for money, her kids were struggling, both my nephews then got jobs in the energy industry that are good jobs. And I'm grateful for them getting good jobs. And I was never allowed to talk to my nephews after I was told this like 3 years ago. And I just found out that one of my nephews is working at Halliburton. And I never would have posted nasty things about Liz Cheney had I known that. Now, I do think it's funny that things have come back to me that Liz Cheney has said about me, and I forgive her. I forgive everybody. You know, I just want to move on with my life. I think the whole thing's obscene. It's ridiculous. You know, if we could just stop lying in America, it could be so much healthier. And you know what? So what? I mean, Mr. Judge Leon Silverman, or whatever his name was, that I saw at Georgetown University speak about John F. Kennedy. Well, it wasn't John F. Kennedy. He said that there was a president or a candidate for president that had an illegitimate child. And it was so funny because I always thought I knew who my bio dad was. And then I actually sent an email to the people at Georgetown. Can you please confirm that they're not talking about Robert Kennedy? Because I know I was born in '65, so I could be JFK's kid. But I could be RFK's kid. And maybe Mr. Daley took credit for me being his kid in order to protect this guy, and then he got contracts. Maybe that's how he got airline contracts. You know what? All this stuff goes in my head, and I don't know what the truth is. And the truth is probably simple. My dad was in Laos running drugs, you know, as a pilot, and he was just doing what he was told, and he wanted to be a pilot, and that's how he got hours. And then my mom probably just slept with his boss. That's all it is. You know, but when people don't tell me the truth, in my head, I start spinning, and I just keep trying to think of, why aren't people telling me the truth? Why? And then it gets out of control. So, you know, I think if people just tell the truth, I think it would be better for America. And I love America, and I'm not crazy. America's crazy, but America's still probably the best country to live in. And I'm grateful I live here. Plus, I was told I can't travel outside of America because Nissan outed me as a former researcher for CIA operatives, of which I was. But, of course, CIA won't take credit because they don't want to admit that they did drug trafficking. They don't want to admit anything. Well, they're the CIA. They can't confirm or deny. So, you know, I just want a life. I want a job. I want health insurance. I want a life. I don't want to keep fighting. Thank you.